This is Trixie. Hello. Hi, Trixie. What you doing, Trixie? Want to see yourself? Look, look. You see yourself? No? Hello, nerds, and welcome back to the Salawag's White Straight Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. Tonight, I just finished watching Edge of Tomorrow again with a friend. Not bad, not bad. On the plot, for those who don't know Edge of Tomorrow, it's about Tom Cruise going to war in these big mech suits. It's the future, and we are fighting against an alien that seems to know our moves before us. Very creepy indeed. As it begins, Tom Cruise tries not to go into battle against the creepy aliens because he mostly serves as sort of a media military guy who sells the big mech suits that everyone's wearing to fight these aliens. And he's completely terrified of going. He goes so far as to attempt to blackmail the general to say, hey, people die out there. I think I'd be able to say it was your fault that they died. Mm-hmm. And that just gets him, he's an officer. He's stripped of his officer ranking. He's stripped of his ranking and called a deserter and forced back into the battle, but as a private. And so right up front, we have this character who is being shoved into the movie, the premise, but he's a complete coward, and he resorts to such petty blackmail of his superior officer, a general of all things, to try and get out of battle. But over the course of the movie, he finds his courage, and he becomes a courageous hero, and it is down to him to save the world from the aliens. Now, where the plot kicks in is that during battle, his first battle, first time wearing the mech suit, doesn't even know how to use the thing he's been selling. He happens to run into the Angel of Verdun, a soldier who, on her first try, killed hundreds of aliens using the mech suit, and she's sort of basically the Captain America of the movement, that if she can do it, so can you. He runs into her in his first battle, but then they both get attacked and killed by this big blue alien. Most of the aliens they fight are orange. Suddenly they're attacked by a blue one, and he blows up the alien and gets covered in its blood and goo, and suddenly snaps awake to the day before the battle, where he has woken up losing his rank and is forced to join the privates for preparing for the next day. So it's it's an interesting premise, because you watch this guy die over and over and over again, realizing he's in this Groundhog's Day scenario, and he's constantly trying to either use this to either get out of battle, or use this to survive the battle, or use this to make some kind of connection with someone. But finally, when he reconnects with the Angel of Verdun, learns that in fact this happened to her as well, and this is why she helped win a battle that made her so famous. But over the course, because she's been through this Groundhog's Day scenario herself, she starts training him. Every time he dies, he wakes up and finds her and trains. And notice how I said plot, but actually a lot of what's great about the movie is so much of it is just story. It's just a guy waking up every morning, committing to his training, and facing his fears, even the fear of death itself, and in this case literally dying every single day. On one hand, it's like an allegory about life. You wake up, you start your day, the day kills you, and then you get up and do it again. And in a science fiction sense, this is a great device for exploring the nature of fear and courage, and where do those things come from? If you know that you're going to die today, will you still go out and do what you're supposed to do? And at the same time, if you know you have to lose someone you care about over and over and over again, would you do it? So a lot of things are rolled into the story. It doesn't linger on any of that stuff, but it's very interesting in terms of just character, just in terms of what a character will go through, A, to survive, B, to win, and C, to see people they care about survive. Because it's interesting, during the first battle, they can't even get out of the ship without the ship being blown up, and they do these airdrops in these mech suits. And there's one guy who gets killed right away by a falling ship, and one of the scenes is Tom Cruise pushing him out of the way and then getting crushed himself, and then he tries again, pushes him out of the way, but keeps running forward, and they both dodge the ship. And it's crazy how the movie, and I don't know if this is any of this comes from the original manga that I believe is Live, Die, Live or something like that. But as for the film itself, as for the telling of the film, I think it was really creative and fun. They really pushed the notion as far as they possibly could, and really made an entertaining, but also very good character piece. Every single scene is about these characters bouncing off of each other. It's not about the plot. It's not about how cool the battle. Although we get a lot of great, I say anime, but in straightforward, normal speed action. We get a lot of great action scenes. I love Emily Blunt in this movie. This is one of my favorite Emily Blunt movies. She plays such a great badass. Seeing her swing around that sword, it's really like a helicopter blade, but she treats it as a sword. It's great seeing her be such a badass Terminator hero, and seeing Tom Cruise, who is known for being the confident, cocky hero, seeing him actually play this absolute coward. And I'm not as familiar with Tom Cruise's best work. I know he has a lot of great traumatic work, like A Few Good Men and Born on the 4th of July. I still haven't seen stuff like that. I'm very much still just the consumer of his more blockbustery stuff like Mission Impossible and all that. But to that end, to see him do a blockbuster type movie where he plays a completely different character as a coward, I think is fascinating. But what I think is really great about this movie, I'm kind of going to detour here a bit. The theme of cowardice, I think, is the most important thing. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, I say go see it. It's a really great time. You're going to have a blast. Like I said, it's a great time watching Tom Cruise go from being a coward to being the hardened hero, but he's more realistic. He's not just saying cool lines or having a cocky attitude by the end of the movie. He wears the weight of his experiences. The fact that they pay attention to that's a part of every single scene. That character development being worked into every single scene, I think is part of what makes it a great movie. And you'll feel it as well when you're watching it. It doesn't just feel like an action movie that's happening to you. I think, again, I keep complaining about Transformers Rise of the Beast, but to me it's like we have this action scene where robots fight each other, and then one robot destroys a bridge on a hill, but somehow the bridge is what stops the Transformers from fighting each other, even though it's just on a hill and it's big enough for any of them to jump from one side of the bridge to. It's just a small bridge, not a big hole, but that's what stops them from fighting. And so just both characters must go on separate plot lines because, I guess, this movie, when the fighting stops, it's because he dies or because the carnage has happened, and people have to deal with the consequences of that carnage. I think consequences are an important part of movies. When you're doing an action movie and you're displaying violence and you're trying to talk about good and evil, you have to talk about the consequences of the behaviors people make. And so when you see that the hardest thing for Tom Cruise in the movie is watching Emily Blunt die, as they kind of get closer and closer every time he resets, seeing her dead in all these different poses, it's already sad as an audience member. It's like, oh no, she's my favorite between you two. No offense, Tom Cruise. But to watch that and to see that affecting him, to see him wear it down, that's part of, I hate to say the fun, but that's what makes it a good movie. That these deaths, even though it's the same one over and over again, hurt him every single time. And he will do anything to stop it from happening if he can. and that becomes his emotional motivation by the end of the movie. For the first half of the movie, he would do anything to get out of the conflict, and for the second half of the movie, he would do anything just to see this friend that he's made. She's both his mentor and his love interest and his friend and his soldier buddy. She's everything in one to him. And it's a subtle bit of a love story, but it's a very good story. That's really just about a guy figuring out how to do life and screwing up every single day. If you take out, and so this is always the test. This is the test to see, does the movie really work? If you pull the genre out, does the movie really work? So if this is just about a guy waking up every day, failing every day, and then just persisting, he does win at the end. It's the Rocky win, but it's the win. The movie is an allegory for life itself, and just not just facing your fears. Like, Cowardice is a core part of his character, like I said, until the halfway point when he's all in. And then the core part of his character is actually caring about other people and wanting other people to survive and make it. He becomes a different person halfway through the movie, and his emotional needs change. So with that being a huge part of it, then that means this is about more than just the simple theme of cowardice. It's about life itself and how we face it and deal with it. And life is like this chess game being played against you sometimes. And you just kind of have to keep going and keep going and keep going and hope that tomorrow, better luck tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow you'll have more luck or more victory than you did today. And I think there's a really great scene in the film where they're holed up in a little farm where they've found a helicopter, and they're having some coffee, and it becomes clear to Emily Blunt he just knows a little bit too much about how she likes her coffee. 2 sugars, right? No, 3 is what you like. And she's like, we've been here multiple times. And he's just trying to have a night with her, not to get laid necessarily, although he's definitely made clear he would like that. But it becomes clear that he's just trying to keep her alive. And at a certain point, she realizes he's trying to keep her there, and she has no patience for this. And he's just like, he fails because she goes out, starts the helicopter, the aliens find them and kill them both. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, maybe today we can take a break. And maybe if they took a break, who knows if they could have actually thought a bit more and figured out a different plot or something, or found another way to make it. Who knows? But it was just like a little bit of that kind of message of sometimes in life you need to slow down and take a breath. Because you're not winning. You're not winning by doing the same thing over and over again. You have to try something different. And then he does try something different. And, again, it's great watching the fact that this movie has so much action, but not a lot of plot. There are plot threads. Finding the alien main base, getting intel on the aliens through using the death, using the memory connection to these aliens. There's little plot threads, but they're not the most important thing about the movie. It's all about this character dealing with what's going on. I believe this is the same director, Doug Liman, from Jumper. I could be wrong. But I like that there is a sort of arc amongst his movies in which, I remember in Jumper, it's about Hayden Christensen teleporting around, and you see him growing up as a thief, and there's a scene where he's watching the news and seeing people struggle on the roofs during Hurricane Katrina, and literally the newscaster says, if someone could just get here and save us, and he just changes the channel. Like, he's just not interested. And it's just like, what a statement on people and America and a lot of different things. And in so many ways, I really related to Tom Cruise in the scene where he's trying to blackmail the general who's given him orders to go to war. And he says, I do this media thing so I don't have to do the fighting thing. No thanks, you know. And it's so real, and honestly, that's how I felt too. I mean, growing up in the time when America was going to war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and everyone kind of knew that this wasn't right, or felt that this war was not what it seems. Still to this day, it is a war that's very divisive, and whatever victories we may have had, it seems like the shortcomings of our actions outweigh the atrocities themselves, due to the way history has unfolded, unfortunately. But all that being the same, coming from that time, I remember that's how I felt. Like, I don't want to go bomb some guy that I don't know. I don't even know if he has anything to do with these attacks, you know? Yeah. And also just, I don't want to. I'm afraid. I want to live, you know? I know for sure if I go to war, I'll probably die. And that's essentially where Tom Cruise is coming from. I think that is the most honest, you know, if you're someone who is just against joining the military, and that's your I think that's as honest as you can possibly get. You know, but just the fact that the story focuses on that level of character and that level of honesty, I think makes it, this is what a Hollywood movie should try to be. It should always try to be character first. And remember that you can have great action and plot elements, but it has to be wrapped around a good script. And if it must be an action movie, at least make sure the character is always moving with the action. The action should always be motivating and affecting the character. That's the difference between a bad action movie and a good action movie, is that, like I said, Transformers, Rise of the Beast, action scenes are happening, but the characters don't change. They're just kind of the same, glossed over, not much going on upstairs. There are some dramatic moments, but they don't really tie together as well as they could. Or Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There's a movie that is almost completely devoid of a sensible screenplay. Who knows if they had one to begin with, because the editing, it makes sure that you don't think there's a script in there. And this was probably all ad-libbed. You know, it's just such a questionable movie to watch. But we're getting more and more of this with movies nowadays, where I mean, yeah, we used to have bad movies back in the day, but good Lord, at least there was some attempt to have a good screenplay in there, or something, you know. This is what a Hollywood movie should be. They should never waste the time of the talent. If you're going to make an entertaining movie, at least still have a good character story in there, something to latch on to. The actor has to be reacting to the action. It doesn't have to be extreme. They don't have to Shia LaBeouf it, like through all the Transformers movies. The good ones were the first three, but they don't have to be reacting like a psychopath to everything. Just to have the action should have a consequence to the characters. That's the whole point of action. It's not just there for dazzling. The consequences are what the story is for, you know, and how you view those consequences. But anyway, that being said, I just, on the whole, really love the character work. Really top-notch filmmaking. But I also want to talk about a theme. What I think is really strong about this movie, and what this movie makes me want to talk about. What does it mean to be a man? And what should a man be? I think that's a very important aspect to this film, because essentially that's what Tom Cruise's character is going through. He starts off with a boyish charm, and he's a coward, and then he gets weathered by life, and it wears him down, and then he has sort of moments of being an old man, having been through it all too many times, and then he finally has some level of revelation about his life and starts to figure out how to put the pieces together to win and to make life worthwhile. And throughout that journey, he becomes a more honest person, a more straightforward person, and a kinder, more inclusive person. In the first action scene, he's just happy to be making out alive. When he saves his fellow soldier from the falling plane, it's out of this sort of guilt/compassion. But later on, when he gets really better at fighting, he suddenly starts to think about his squad that he first showed up with, and he runs back and protects them from a battle where he knows they all get killed. And so as he gets older, as he gets more experiences, he sees how important it is to protect the community that he has, even if it's just starting with the one that's immediately in front of him. But that protection leads to the connections and them getting closer as characters. And it's something that we learn over the course of the movies, is how many times he has experienced things, because suddenly he starts knowing things that he learned off screen, and it's fine. Because that's not the relationship that we're concerned about with this story. The relationship we're concerned about is Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, who are really the buddies in this buddy movie of two war heroes who are trying to solve and save humanity from the war. But nonetheless, that's these values that he's learning as a person. He's growing up. And the reason I talk about movies the way that I do, and the reason most of the time I'm looking for the filmmaker point of view, but I'm also trying to find the human point of view. There are these false notions about art and film, that they are these disposable things that maybe you relate to sometimes, but they don't really matter. And at the end of the day, that is the truth. How I've always felt about film is that we filmmakers are the makers of dreams and the makers of disposable art. Because we could make the greatest film of all time, and someday it'll just be a DVD crumpled on the street that someone steps on, and no one's ever seen the movie because it's 100 years old. And that's just the truth, and that's the fate of all the movies that we love. No matter how great they are, eventually, you've stomped on a Orson Welles DVD someone left because they don't care. It's not the latest Batman. But in that art is a reflection of life. It's trying to speak to you as a person. It's not just trying to entertain you. What makes the great art that lives with us is the person telling the story is telling something that they relate to, or something that they want to communicate about life to you, because it's something that they feel. It's about how you should be in life. And I look at Star Wars and everyone, and here's my big baggage on the Star Wars, okay? I was with everyone in hating the prequels, except for Phantom Menace, which I saw in theaters. It was my first Star Wars, and it's still my favorite Star Wars in many ways, next to Return of the Jedi. Anyone who doesn't have it in that order, I understand, but I think you're just sucking the populist cojones. No. But you look at Star Wars, and for all the hate people have for the prequels, I've actually come around, and I actually love them, because at the end of the day, the prequels are telling the story. Now, we may not like it in the entirety of how the story is told. Maybe it's a little too goofy, it's a little too silly here and there. But at the end of the day, when Anakin Skywalker burns to death on the side of a hill in a boiling lake of lava, I think that's a shocking and horrific moment. And when the last lines between him and Obi-Wan are, I hate you, and it's like, I love you, you were a brother to me, but then you went and did all these horrible things. There's, at the end of the day, the Star Wars prequels was about two people who didn't always see eye to eye, but they did care about each other. And unfortunately, with all the action, eventually one of the characters started doing the wrong thing, and the other guy had to live with those choices and had to kill his own friend because he'd gone so far the wrong way. And the redemption comes out of the kids' story, the Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, who have all the cockiness and arrogance and powers of the father, but they have the guidance of seeing the negative consequences of the father's choices, growing up under their father's empire, although they did not know he was the dad, growing up under the consequences of seeing where the behaviors of Anakin Skywalker went, taught them that that's not the right way. Even Anakin knew that that wasn't the right thing to do, but he felt motivated to do so, to act against his own sense of right and wrong for his own selfish interests. And yet his own selfish interests would have been aided if he had just done the right thing in the first place. But that is what Luke Skywalker represents. But that story is reflected with the kids. The kids see the consequences of what their dad has done and choose to live a better life. They choose, hey, this isn't right. It's not right to oppress people and control people. You just see the consequence, and to burn people because they don't agree with you, because they have some information that you might not like to get out. None of that's right. And they fight for what's right and they win, But both Luke and Anakin grow up a bit whiny, a bit misguided. What matters is doing the right thing, doing what you feel is right, giving to your community the best that you can give. These are these things that even Luke was afraid. Even Anakin was afraid. Anakin was afraid to be away from his mother in the Phantom Menace. He's like, can my mommy go with me? No. Your mom can't go with you on the journey to be a Jedi. We got some rules that kind of accidentally make Sith Lords, so we gotta follow the rules. Otherwise, there's no story, But all these characters have their fears. It's how they handle their fears. Whether it's Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker or Tom Cruise's character, each character deals with fear. When Anakin's afraid, as an adult, he lashes out with his anger. He's afraid he'll lose Padme, so he kills Mace Windu. And then he kills the younglings, all for the name of a power that he never even gets to achieve. And in his anger, when Padme, his wife, the mother of his kids, comes to him and calls him out for his behavior, in his anger and embarrassment and in his shame for what he's done, he strangles her for not agreeing with him and feeling like he's right, because in his mind he was doing this for her and for him and for all this. And to have the rejection of the deeds, that hurts him so deeply, and he's so afraid of her and suffering from that rejection that he reacts in anger. And it gets to such a point when, as Darth Vader, if people disappoint him, he just strangles them and kills them. But to think that the first person that Anakin Skywalker force strangled was his own wife, that's powerful. I mean, we're talking domestic violence there, okay? We're talking about domestic violence in a popular movie that's kind of a cartoon. But that cartoon layering is there to soften the blow of what dark and real stuff they have to talk about. And to bring it all back to Edge of Tomorrow, here's a guy who was so afraid. He never got angry, not really. Emily Blunt's character was angry. She was so angry she didn't give a shift about anything. Her character was angry. That's why she was so cold. But all Tom Cruise wanted was to make it. That's all his original desire was. And we do get a little bit of that Hollywood ending with him making it. But I just think the important thread is to understand that what makes movies great is the very same thing that makes a person great. When you grow up and you watch someone struggle, we've all had the friend who struggles with dating or struggles with school. I've always been the one who struggled with dating but didn't struggle with school. And you see them succeed, you see them win. I know I I had a friend who joined the military, and he's just had a long story. He's made some mistakes, and he had some years where he was living in some pretty dire straits and making some bad choices, bad relationships. And it was really a bummer. And I was going through some of my own hard times at the same time. I couldn't really help him. But it's beautiful to see that, he overcame some of his struggles, and he's gotten himself up on his bootstraps, and he's working, and he's paying the bills, and he's taking care of his kids and seeing them, and I'm really glad for him. We all have these struggles where it seems like it's going to take forever, and that's what Tom Cruise's character is throughout this movie. Like I said, the second half is every day sucks. Every day you are rock bottom, and you're just trying to make it to the next day. And the beautiful thing is that he does, because he persists, and he maintains his good character, and he grows his good character and builds his community. What makes him win at the end is that the squad that he had rescued earlier in the movie, he later realizes he needs them. It can't just be the two of these people. They can't do it by themselves. They need a team to go win the final battle. And it's by the course of the movie, even though much of it happens off screen, he gets to know the team. He gets to know about them and what their problems are and what their histories are. He bonds with each one of them across as many deaths. And it's that bond at the very end when everyone comes together united because they got to know each other and looked out for each other. Their shared experiences. Same thing that Star Wars about. That Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia were in many adventures together and got to look out for each other and learn about each other and care about each other. That they built a community within themselves, that genuine friendship. There's that meme or quote that goes around that says, your good friend bails you out of jail. Your best friend is right there next to you in the cell. And that's the truth. It's like your war buddy, the person who looks out for you. But you only get that through life experience, and you only learn right from wrong through life experience and gain that sense of community. All of that happens by getting out there and getting to know people. And hey, what? Want me to stop talking? I'm almost done. Stop it. I'm not gonna pitch you if you're gonna act like that. But going through those things, that is what makes a person grow. That's what it is to be a man, what it is to be a person. It's not just manhood, but to be a person is you start off one way, you start off a little whiny, you start a little bit difficult to deal with. Like I said, I was not too far from Tom Cruise in my younger days, but I still had my good qualities, and those I've tried my best to keep them shining. But that's what it is to be a person. That's what this movie's about, and what all of these movies share in common. They're all about what it is to be alive and to be a person, and that every single day might be a struggle, but just having someone to have by your side and help keep you on the right path is so important. It is so crucial to being a person, but even if you don't have that person, to still hold on to that on the inside, as that's what Obi-Wan represents in A New Hope, is that despite the terrors and traumas and awful things that he's been through in his life, he knows the right way to be, and he sticks to it to the very end. That if we could all be so wise and kind and protective as Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's basically like a very good, strong warrior grandfather, your war veteran grandfather who looks out for you. That's who Obi-Wan is. But here, what I think is beautiful about the Tom Cruise character in Edge of Tomorrow is that he's already an adult. He's already someone who should have kids already, but he's someone who has wasted his life being a playboy and having fun and not really caring about war or battle or anything, even though he's in the military. And it just goes to show that you can be at any stage of life and still need to learn these lessons. and that's okay. It's just as long as you learn. Because if Tom Cruise had stayed single-minded and looking out for himself only, that Han Solo attitude, he would have never saved the world. He would never have gotten to know Emily Blunt and fall in love and find a community in his squad and with his squad win the day, what he could never do by himself or just with her. It took all that life learning lesson for him to get that at the end of the movie. So that's something that Star Wars and just even that little moment from Jumper, that's what it's all about, is that what movies should be are a true reflection of what we need to learn. You know, I understand everyone wants to get angry and mob, and sometimes there may come a day where the angry mob is what we really need. But how many times has it just made things worse? It is so important to grow and to learn and to get better. Like I said, I'm guilty of all the things I'm talking about. And I've learned at 33 years old, which the older people still say is a baby, still young. I've learned at 33 years old, hey, you know, stop taking things that I shouldn't take so seriously, and just live your life and be good to the people that you care about. And if you can, help out the community. You know, I've dabbled in volunteering a little bit. It was fun. And I do miss it and need to get back to it. But I got other things going on that I got to take care of. And once I take care of those things, you better believe I'll be back to helping out my community. But for now, I'm just talking about movies because I love movies. But this is the other half of why I'm doing the podcast, is to talk about how movies are a reflection of us as people and of our lives and of what we should strive for every day. That the reason we love the movies is because they represent an ideal that we wish we could attain. Or maybe some of us are trying, or maybe some of us feel like they've already done, but you know, we feel that some value that we know in our hearts. It's something that we know without knowing. A religious person might call it God. A non-religious person would call it the good spirit of the universe, whatever you want to call it. But some of these movies hit us because we know in our hearts we want to have those values, we want to have those experiences, we want to be so good in a moment of crisis. And I'm telling you that every single one of you can have that, but you have to choose it in your own life. If you're hating movies right now, maybe it's because movies are just reflecting the values that people have now. And that's the unfortunate thing. Maybe that's the real sad truth, is that our values as a society have sunken, and we need to fight that. But pick how you fight. You don't need to start a fight. You know, you find a way to lead by example. Find a way to reach out and do something useful, or at least, you know, don't waste your energy being caught up in that negativity. Find a way to get your life going the way you need it. One day at a time, as they say. Believe me, I know one day at a time, and that's all we can do. It's just one day at a time, fight our own demons, and hopefully win the battle against the demons that are outside of us too. But it just takes one day at a time, and that, I think, is the most powerful message that Edge of Tomorrow can give us. So anyway, great movie. I just want to talk about those things. And thanks for watching me be shirtless. I gotta say, if you've made it through multiple of my shirtless reviews, I'm telling you, I'm not doing it for sex appeal. But if you do find me sexually attractive, thank you. You don't have to tell me. Okay, you can tell me. But don't get creepy about it, okay? I'm a one-woman kind of a guy. And I'm just like looking for just one woman who's right for me, okay? Okay? Okay, girlfriend? Or, you know, person in transition, okay? Okay? Just one. I'm not going for all you. Okay. Okay, I did it for you. That's enough. That's enough. Stop objectifying me. I'm a person, not a thing. I'm sorry. I'm a weirdo.